handle everything back there and get it started.
Okay. Yeah, because I need to make sure it's on.
All right. Hopefully you guys are having a good night. Remember, no breaks, no muting tonight.
This is the 4th and 16 with Ellis Tolbert, a college and NFL football show talking X's and O's. It's no frills and no gimmicks. It's time to bring your A game. Let's talk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to 4th and 16. I'm your host, Ellis Tolbert, sitting here with Facts and Childress. Got a great show coming up for you guys tonight. Hopefully you all are having a great night. It's Tuesday. Walt just killed it. Look, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We're going to be talking some NFL stuff in the second half. We're also going to be talking about Clemson recap, Week 2 recap of college football. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening. A lot of stuff that I didn't really see, but I'm excited about it. We'll be talking top 25 rankings as well. Get in. Phone lines are open, 654-7627. Of course, we're coming to you live from Pronk Studios here in Greenville, South Carolina. Fax, how you feeling tonight, man? You ready for this conversation?
I'm definitely ready. You know, we had a really fun weekend of NFL and college football, so I'm excited to be here, be able to talk about it tonight. And, you know, Clemson was able to get back in the win column, thankfully, so I'm very excited to talk about everything tonight.
Yeah, man. And look, we still have that section of fans that are in the sky is falling type mindset. And we still have some people on the other side that says, yeah, there's no problems what's going on whatsoever. Everything's fine. But we're here to bring you a little bit more to the earth, get you guys caught up to everything going on. Obviously, Clemson won the game big against South Carolina State. Coach Buddy Pugh was not happy about it, but hey, at least they got those players out there. He's got a couple of talented players on that roster. I think his name was Jacoby Robinson. Safety had 2 interceptions, one beautiful laid out one. And he also had a pretty good quarterback. Corey Fields looked like one of the better quarterbacks in the game, regardless of which team he was out there for. But again, Clemson got a lot of things done. I thought they showed improvement in a lot of different things. I thought the run game looked a little bit more smooth. I thought that, you're looking at the passing game. We saw a little bit of improvement of that. I know a lot of people are wanting to pile on the DJ train right now, try to, he's terrible, he's this or that. I've heard some crazy, insane things about this kid over the last few days. And we got a little bit more insight about that running back room. We'll start with that. Start with the running back room. Lyn-J Dixon, right now, still in the doghouse with C.J. Spiller. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, hearing the post-game presser from Dabo saying that Lyn-J needed to grow up, and then hearing that also CJ was Lyn-J was on bad terms with C.J. Spiller, the running back coach. It was kind of disappointing to hear because Lyn-J Dixon, as we all know, 5-star recruit, very talented player, very talented running back. Coming into the season, everyone thought he was running back 1. I personally didn't think that, but he was being listed as running back 1. And I think that we've seen in these first 2 games what Lyn-J can provide when he's on the field. He's a nice change of pace. He's very quick. He's very agile. With that being said, I think we got to give some credit to Will Shipley while we're talking about the running back room. He's looked very good in both games. I felt like even though we weren't able to get the run game going in game 1 against Georgia, he had a great bounce back game against South Carolina State. And even against Georgia, he was a threat out there. He was catching passes. He did well in the pass protection game, I thought. But obviously to have that 2-headed snake of Lyn-J Dixon and Will Shipley would be very valuable for the Tigers going forward. So I hope Lyn-J can get it resolved with the coaching staff because I feel like those two make a nice 1-2 punch. And then you throw Kobe Pace in the mix as a nice running back 3. Some may even argue him as the running back 2. He provides a lot for the Tigers as well. So I think the run game could get there, but they need a little more time and they need everyone to, be on good terms with the coaching staff, first of all.
Oh, absolutely. And You know, Dabo has said it himself. There's 3 guys that can go out and start for this team right now. Again, Will Shipley, ACC Rookie of the Week. Look, he looks like a guy that can run every down for the Tigers. I don't think that there's any question that this kid is ready for the game. He already had a taste of some big-time football against Georgia, one of the toughest defenses that he's going to face this year. It's just one of those things where I feel like you're in a good position rather than having one guy that is going to be the elite guy, and when everyone comes in, there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off. No, you're going to see a little bit more of a competition here. It's still open. There is no verdict on who is going to walk out first against Georgia Tech this weekend. I love that ability. I love the ability to do that. Now, the offensive line took a little bit of a hit. There's some guys right now that are – we had some pretty big injuries in this game. Dietrich Pennington, young guy who Dabo was looked at as somebody who's going to contribute for this Clemson offensive line, got hurt in this game. It's just one of those things where we need more depth. We saw more players coming in, getting their chops in, being thrown in the grease. You saw Marcus Tate get out there. I saw even Hunter Rayburn get out there and get some snaps at center. That's what I've been waiting for. I want to see everybody get gelled. That's what we needed in this South Carolina State game. Going against Georgia Tech, I think we'll see a little bit more of a run game. We'll talk about that in a second, too. How do you think about the passing game, though? This is something that everybody's been worrying about forever. What are we going to do if we can't throw the ball? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not going to be on here and act super positive because I don't think that I saw a lot in this game against South Carolina State to be positive about when it comes to the passing game. I mean, you know, you put up 3 points in the first game against Georgia. Pass protection on the offensive line was bad. DJ was bad for the standard that he set last year when he looked amazing in both starts, I felt like. And then, you know, against South Carolina State, you know, throws a pick on a screen, throws another pick, and it's just like something's off. The timing still doesn't seem fully correct with the Clemson offense. And, you know, Georgia Tech is going to be an easy win for the Tigers. I mean, we can talk about this more later, but Clemson's going to win that game regardless. If you put me out there at quarterback, I think Clemson could win that game. I can hand the ball off to these 5-star athletes, but it's not very encouraging to see DJ throw 2 picks against South Carolina State and have a pretty poor game for his standards, I feel like. But with that being said, he's still a 5-star recruit. We know what he can do. We know what he's capable of. So I'm expecting them to get it sorted out. I need to see that soon.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it's red alert for Clemson fans. I don't want to say it's red alert for DJ. We did see some issues, but it wasn't just him. We saw some issues with all 3 quarterbacks that got in. A little bit of overthrowing. A lot of that's just mechanics. Those are things that you can fix. We saw the things that we were worried about: pocket presence, arm strength, everything like that was rectified from the Georgia game. I think he did show improvement in this game. And hey, the season's long. He's going to have a chance to really get better. We got Clemson Dominates on the phone. Let me get him on here. Clemson Dominates, what's going on?
Hey, guys. So as far as Lynjay, the thing that he provides that's clearly better than the other 2 backs is a recognition of stunts and blitz pickups. We saw it in the Georgia game, the 2 series that he got in. DJ was much more confident because I felt that was the area that Shipley and Pace really weren't as good. Frankly, they missed a lot of guys. In fact, Shipley went to an area where the guys were being blocked and left this thing he could have drove a pickup guy through, and then the Georgia guy who was in linebacker just like, okay, if you're going to leave this hole open, and just decided to run after DJ. And it was just like, you know, that stuff obviously that comes with experience, and it's really difficult for players who haven't had playing time at this kind of level where the stunts and the schemes are way more complicated than, you know, what you get in high school. So, you know, they're going to pick it up, but at this point it's really hurting the team. And I hope Lynjay gets his stuff together because I think we're a better team when we got him. And also, I would like to see them utilize Will Shipley in a slot position so that you could have two of the backs on the field at the same time, because I feel if you get Shipley on a safety or a linebacker, that he could really exploit him.
That's actually really good points. I'm going to take it off over here, but I appreciate your call. That was really good
sure.
point. Thanks, man.
Yeah, he's a very well-informed caller.
Yeah, so there's a couple things with that. Lynjay Dixon, yes, he is an upperclassman. He definitely knows pass pro a little bit better than the other guys. Remember, Kobe Pace is only a sophomore, and Will Shipley's, this is his first action, so we're excited about seeing those guys. Lyn-J Dixon does bring a little bit more of a explosiveness to the team, but that's, again, I go back to, I don't have any problems with any of these guys going out on the field for us. I think if you're talking about ceiling, the highest ceiling is going to be a guy like Will Shipley. I think he gives you the ability to be able to go out and catch passes. He's going to give you the ability to come in a 22 personnel or 21 personnel. You got two backs out there. I don't really think you got other guys doing that as much. But then the other aspect of what he said is putting Will Shipley out there at slot. I think that is something that Clemson should absolutely do. You're talking about a kid who can run routes with the best of them. He's got speed. He's got hands. And that gives you another thing to worry about if you're a defensive coordinator, especially if you have somebody like Lyn-J Dixon in the backfield and Will Shipley out there. I just wonder how they're going to be able to implement that with Tony Elliott's offense.
Yeah, and, I don't want to sit on there's been a lot of people coming off after Tony Elliott after these first two games, and I can't sit here and say that is not deserved because the play calling has been pretty bland and pretty vanilla. Georgia had us figured out. There's a couple times against South Carolina State where I was left scratching my head as a fan, but going personnel-wise, I think this is a way Tony Elliott can improve, like the caller was talking about. Will Shipley in the slot needs to be explored because if you can have Justin Ross and Joe Ngata, who have both had pretty good starts to the season on the outside, and I know Justin's playing slot. He's been lining up at X a lot, so slot is being used very loosely, and he had a good game against South Carolina State, I thought. If you can have Justin Ross, Joe Ngata, and then maybe a guy like Will Shipley in the slot, I think that's an option that needs to be pursued because then you can keep Lyn-J on the field in the running back spot like he was talking about. He's got the veteran leadership. He's experienced, very good in pass protection compared to the other two less experienced backs. And then you also still can keep the playmaking ability of Will Shipley on the field. Another guy I'd like to throw his hat in the ring for should potentially get some looks at slot, Will Taylor. I think Will Taylor, and they've been experimenting with him in Wildcat. I've seen him line up at X a few times. He's lined up in the slot a few times. I think Will Taylor deserves more of a chance and to get himself integrated into the offense, whether that be in a running back, quarterback, or wide receiver role because he can do it all. And I think Will Shipley needs more time in the slot, and we need Lyn-J to get his act together so he can be the running back one on this team and have that pass protection so we can use Shipley other places on the field because if Shipley's playing running back, we don't have anyone else we can put in the slot. That's right. And honestly, if you think about it, a lot of things with Lyn-J is just it's mental. The kid has all the tools, but it could be, you heard it talked about, establishing dominance in that room. You're the guy who's been there. You expect the carries. You expect it to be this way. You don't want to be coached this way or that way. You've had it this way for a while. Things change, and you have a new running back coach, and Coach C.J. Spiller, he has a different flavor than a guy like Tony Elliott did when he was coaching the running back. So there's a little bit of an acclimation period, but I believe what can happen right now, if you look at the formations, and this is nothing that Coach Elliott doesn't know or anybody else out there can't see. Clemson likes to run a lot of 12 personnel. You got one running back, two tights. A lot of the times you'll have Brayton Galloway off the line, and you'll have Davis Allen on the line. Well, what if we switch one of those guys out in a couple situations where you have 21 personnel? You have two running backs, one tight. That really doesn't take any of the receivers off of the field. It just gives you one less blocker. I know some people will probably scoff at that because, you're taking blockers off of a somewhat weak line. I think some of that issue, too, is mental for the offensive line. I don't think these guys are weak. You've got big hog mollies on that offensive line, 300-plus pound guys. It's not because they're weak. It's not because they don't focus as much as other teams do. It's literally this team has to get right mentally. That's what I think this whole thing about this past 2 weeks and the key word for this whole season is going to be. It's going to be, can you be confident and can you be motivated and focused? This team has everything in front of them. They have to be motivated and focused, but games like against South Carolina State, and if we have a great game against Georgia Tech, we'll talk about this on the other side, that's going to give you confidence. When you're confident, you're going to play the best you've ever played because you believe that no one can beat you. When you're out there getting beat or dogged on pass tags or anything like that, it's going to hurt your confidence. The reason why defense is playing so well is because they're confident. No one scored a touchdown on this team, not even number 2 Georgia. It's one of those things where they're confident. They're ready to go. Can we get this offense confident too? I mean, the defense, like we're talking about, very experienced. You return almost all your starters. Great front seven. Linebackers have been fantastic and blown away my expectations in an area that I thought could be a little bit of a question mark. Spector's been fantastic. Skalski has returned to his level as an All-American. And the front seven's been fantastic. Pressure's getting home constantly. Miles Murphy, absolutely out there balling. Brian Bresee in the backfield on every play, it feels like. Secondary, some of these young guys have stepped up big time. And the defense appears to be a defense that can compete in the college football playoff. Last year, I don't feel like we had that defense. I didn't think there was that level of experience, and we saw it against Ohio State. But this year, the defense really looks strong.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3 deep. That's something we haven't seen in a while. I feel confident with every backer coming in to spell a guy like Spector or Skalski or Trent Simpson. I don't feel upset about when the second-string safeties or cornerbacks come in. Makuba playing out of his mind as a true freshman. How about that?
Ridiculous.
It's just one of those things where we're seeing this defense really develop. They have developed into something that could be dominant in college football, and that's no diss to anybody else, or Georgia, because we saw what they did against Clemson. But I promise you, Clemson has the sustainability to do the same thing, if not better, coming back. On the other side, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Georgia Tech game. I want to get into that just a little bit. We'll also be talking about top 25. And, hey, there could be some interesting people moving into the top 5 this week coming up right here on The Roar. So, listen, we got Rory on the other side. We're going to get to you, Rory, when we come back. Phone lines are open, 864-654-7627. This is 4th and 16. Got 4th and 16 with Facts and Childress, and I'm Ellis Tolbert. See you on the other side.
You're clear.
Oh. Man, I seriously think it's confidence. If everybody's talking about DJ, everybody's talking about what they're not doing, but the more you build that confidence. I think South Carolina State, there are still some things that we didn't like. I still think that there are some things that coach doesn't like. But I also think that we saw enough to believe that this team can really explode going forward. I would be surprised to think that this next game, they don't turn it up and everybody forgets about what happened week 1 and 2.
Listen, I love DJ. We went on Walt's show before the Georgia game. We were talking about this and that, and I'm just confused. Putting up 404 last year against that Notre Dame defense on the road.
But it's different.
And it's 171, 14 for 24 with a pick against South Carolina State. I know it's different, but it's
different.
It's concerning for a multitude of reasons. I'm not convinced it's entirely DJ's fault.
No, it's not. It's not. I think there was a total effort offensively to be as bad as they were game 1. Plain and simple. And I'm not even stopping at the players. I think the preparation for Georgia. Now, game 1, you're playing against a team that Clemson hadn't played Georgia since 2014. They have Dan Lenning's a totally new defensive coordinator. He's similar to Kirby Smart, but it's not the same. And the last film that you had to go off of was not a great crossover. Cincinnati doesn't have a similar offense to Clemson. So you don't really know what you're getting with Georgia. And when they came out, they were saying, hey, this kid's scared. But in the beginning of the game, I guarantee you, they thought, okay, here we go. This kid is going to light us up. And then they got to him. And then they hit him hard. And then it was one of those deals where he just kind of looks a little skittish and he's holding the ball too long. And they were like, you know what? I'm not worried about him throwing the ball. I'm not worried about anything. And they peeled their ears back. They had the confidence. And Clemson did not. Now, it's also different when you are the starting quarterback and you're following Trevor Lawrence, who is the number 1, and all everybody's talked about is you throwing for almost 900 yards and 8 touchdowns and no interceptions. Again, going to South Bend.
I mean, people were, including us, were calling DJ a top 10 QB in the nation last year, sitting on Clemson's bench.
He could be.
Yeah.
He could be a top 2 quarterback.
He could be the number 1 pick
this year.
22 if he just gets it together.
But he has to get it together and that confidence.
Has the talent. We know he has the talent.
I just don't think he's confident. I think, one, you had a bad game, which is fine. Everybody's going to have a bad game. Maybe not to that level bad game. I don't think Kelly Bryant had the game that bad. And no offense to Kelly Bryant, but you know what I mean? I think Kelly Bryant's worst game, he still put up more points than that. But it's one of those things where, again, confidence breeds success. And we know it's about know-how. We know these players know how to play. That was why I was so excited about the South Carolina State game. I know it's South Carolina State. I wanted to see them be good
Got
technique-wise.
about 20.
20 seconds? We're coming back. We're good. But, yeah, if they can figure that out, that'd be good. All right, we got 2 calls online to bring it in, do the sponsor, bring in the calls.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll talk GT. For everybody watching there on Facebook and YouTube, hope you guys are having a great night. Get in on the comments. We'll be good. Welcome back to 4th and 16. I'm Ellis Tolbert. We got Facts and Childress in the house with me. We're going to be talking some Georgia Tech. Got some callers on the line. I got Rory and Brian. Hold on. We'll get to you. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you about my friends over here at Pronk Studios in Greenville, South Carolina. If you're out there listening and you have an idea for a great show, you want to have your own show in front of the cameras in a nice studio here in Greenville, South Carolina, Pronk Studios is the place to go to. They're going to help you be able to process everything. They're going to be able to edit your videos. They're going to get you all recorded for a podcast. They're going to even be able to get you promoted on social media. They do all of that and more for you. If you're interested, make sure to reach out to them at pronk.tv. That's PRONK.TV. Pronk Studios in Greenville, South Carolina. Faxon, Georgia Tech. Okay? This team is bringing back 10 guys defensively who've started 5 games. Trace Willing was one of those cornerbacks who baited Trevor Lawrence really bad in 2019 in the first game of the season. They're going to have some defensive firepower. And you know what happens when a team is getting confident and they have some upperclassmen and they want to bring the heat. Coach Thacker's going to do it. He's going to send the house. How do you feel about Georgia Tech this weekend?
I mean, I think we're going to beat Georgia Tech, obviously. I think it'll probably be a blowout as well. But if there's ever a time where you sniff blood in the water with Clemson, it's right now. And I think that, you know, Coach Thacker, like you said, and the Yellow Jackets will be sending pressure at DJ and forcing him to make plays all night. But I'm going to go out on a limb. This is the DJ breakout game. I'm going to say
we feel it, right?
I'm going to say 304 for Mr. DJ in this game, and this is the game where the Clemson offense sets it straight. Expect a big, Frank Ladson has been like a ghost this year for the Tigers. I'm going to say he gets a long catch as well. I think this is the game where everything finally starts to go into motion and click for Clemson.
You heard it first, folks. Facts and Children coming out here with all the stats coming out. I'm excited to see how you do on this one. Georgia Tech defensive line, their defensive front seven, nowhere near as big as Georgia's. They got maybe one guy that's 300 plus. I have a feeling that Clemson's going to come out running the ball a lot. I think Georgia is a tough game, game one. You play South Carolina State, gives you a little bit of breather, some focused game, get your confidence back. Georgia Tech's right in the middle of those two. They're not quite where they need to be. They're still rebuilding under Coach Jeff. I tend to agree with you. I think that Georgia Tech's going to get the brunt of Clemson's anger for these past 2 weeks. I think this team's going to come in motivated and focused, ready to go. I got Rory on the line. Rory, what's going on, man?
Hey, Ellis, how are you? Fantastic so far.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Let me just tell you a couple of things. Oh, I got a little bone to pick with you, but first I'm going to agree with one of your first callers about putting Will Shipley in the slot. I think Dabo and Mr. Franklin already have that kind of in their minds. It's kind of easy. You see a kid like that, you got to keep him on the field. You put him in the slot with Lynn J in the backfield too, or whomever, and it works. Okay, now I know we only have an hour show, so this is what I want to talk to you about, Ellis. Do you remember in the summertime when you told me that you thought Florida State would win? I don't remember how many games that I immediately called you to chastise you about that.
Hey, I said 5. Remember? I can tell you exactly which games.
Yeah. Well, at first you started at 7, my friend, and then I got you down to 5. And one of the games I warned you about was Jacksonville State. Do you not remember that?
Hey, Zarek Cooper
That boy Zarek Cooper.
brought it in there. 59 yards touchdown. Devon Filial transfer from Duke. How about that? But look, all right, with that said, do you think they win this game against Wake Forest this Saturday?
Heck no. I love Wake Forest. I love their coach. And now I can't think of his name. And I'm taking Wake all day to cover the points. I think it's 6.5 or 7. Ellis, good show. I'm glad you could take a little crow. You do remember that.
Oh, I remember, man. Trust me, I'm off of the train. Even with Mackenzie Milton. Appreciate you calling in, Roy.
Yeah, thank you, bud. Bye-bye.
Hey, Roy, when you call back next week, all right, I want to see if you still hold on to Florida State. If they beat Wake Forest, are you going to hold on to that? Are you going to give them a little bit of credit? That's funny. Florida State, man.
Absolute disaster for them.
Awful. We got Brian on the line, too. Brian, thanks for holding, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Thanks for calling in, man. What can I do for you?
Sure. Well, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the college football playoffs. Typically, we hear about the body of work. It always plays a factor year after year. We always see Clemson slip a little bit with an ACC team. It comes back and bites them. I know everyone in the ACC is out to get Clemson. They are every year. So a couple questions for you. What does Clemson got to do to meet the playoff committee's challenge to have a complete body of work? And two, do the Gamecocks got a chance this year, and I'm a Clemson fan, to put some points up against Georgia this weekend and make Clemson look like they don't belong there? And I'll take the answer off the air.
Good question, man. I appreciate you calling in, Brian. Hey, all right, so we'll start with the first one. I think Clemson needs to absolutely destroy everybody in their path and maybe hope for Oklahoma or Oregon to take a loss. If that happens, then you're going to have that conversation where you're really comparing best win versus best loss, because Clemson's going to have one of the best losses, which is ironic to say, but they're going to be going up against Oklahoma and Ohio State and Oregon and those teams like that. If they can demolish everybody get through the ACC championship, there's still a couple of ACC teams that have a chance of being ranked.
It'll just be interesting
It'll
to
be
see
fine.
because I feel like, and it sucks to say now, but I feel like this is going to come down to Clemson versus Ohio State. And I feel like Ohio State's going to be able to point at their resume and say, hey, look, we beat Penn State. We beat Iowa. We beat these guys in the Big Ten, which I personally feel like a lot of these Big Ten teams get overrated and aren't really as good as their ranking, but they're going to get ranked.
Yeah.
And, Clemson is now at a point in the season where they're relying on other teams to get ranked just to play them. NC State, I thought, had a chance. They went out and looked terrible last week against Mike Leach and Mississippi State, and they now dropped that game. And so now they're not going to be ranked. Georgia Tech's obviously not going to be ranked. We might go 3 or 4 more weeks before Clemson even has a chance at playing a ranked opponent. And I feel like that's really bad. And it sucks to say, but it's the reality of the situation where you have to start resume comparing. And it's the situation you put yourself in by only putting up 3 points in your biggest game of the season.
Right. Now, I will say this. There's a couple things I want to go into the South Carolina question because that's definitely a good one. But I think that when we're getting into this, you got to remember that other schools are also trying to pad their resume as well. I think Oregon has a chance to go undefeated because they're kind of in Clemson's place, except they have a better win right now against Ohio State. Ohio State still has a chance to get beaten a couple of times. What I saw of that team, Penn State could beat them. Wisconsin could potentially beat them. Who's to say that we don't know? Maybe Michigan State just is a revelation this year. I mean, they are beating people badly. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I think when it comes to Clemson, they're going to have to really prove it on the field. Now, the one thing is, and this is something that Clemson fans are going to have to get used to, is that there is going to come a day where Clemson does not make the playoffs. That could be this year. Hopefully not. But even if it does happen, that's okay. We've already won 2 national championships, which is more than really any other school outside of Alabama can say in the playoff era.
I mean, Clemson's played in 10 college football playoff games. They've played in 4 national titles. They've played in 2 national titles, or they've won 2 national titles, rather. The standard has been set, and it's the gold standard for the Tigers. But like you're saying, this will be a day where Clemson does not make the college football playoff.
And as far as the South Carolina thing goes, I think by that time, Zeb Nolan, who's played football for 80 years, is going to have this offense at least understanding the idea of playing offensive football, because against ECU, it didn't look like it for the first part. Hey, and pot call Caleb Black, we know what that feels like, right? But wondering if South Carolina is going to show up Clemson against Georgia. Well, technically, UAB already did that. They scored a touchdown against this Georgia defense. So that's kind of we've already been shown up by a mid-major, but it's just one of those things that's okay. We got Michael on the air. Thanks, Michael, for holding.
Hi, Ellis. First time, long time.
Thanks, man.
Just wanted to take a quick second to talk about my LSU Tigers. I mean, what is Coach O doing out there, dude? I mean, it's ridiculous. Mediocre quarterback, the best running back, can't even pass a class. The wide receivers can't catch. The offensive line can't block to save their freaking lives. What is going on, dude? Coach O better get his shrimp boat application ready. He's not making it to next season.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. I'm gonna take you offline. That's really good. That made me feel good. Okay, here's the one thing that might be the only LSU fan who I know who doesn't believe this team's still going to win a national championship this year, even with the 2 games that they've played so far. Now, here's the deal. LSU is still a good football team. I think people are overshadowing the fact that UCLA might actually be a really good football team this season. And you blew the brakes off of McNeese State. Poor Cody Orgeron, coach's son. But there's still chance for this team to be good, but I tend to agree with you. There's a lot of issues with them. I thought that Max was going to be able to really elevate this team. I thought he was going to be the better quarterback anyway in the competition. I tend to agree. I don't know what's going to happen with LSU. They have a chance to get back in. They're not out of it. They lost the 1 game out of conference. But, man.
I can't say anything I've seen out of LSU is inspiring confidence within me that they're going to run the table and pull off some miraculous run. But I will say, I think Orgeron might be out the door soon. Boosters can't be happy after setting this gold standard with, you have Joe Brady, who I feel like carried them to a national title looking back on it. And we kind of discussed this at the time that we didn't know how much credit Coach Orgeron deserved, and we thought Joe Brady was the mastermind. And Joe Brady and Joe Burrow really just saved that program.
They did.
And, after a disappointing year last year, this year is off to a rocky start. If Coach O's headed out the door soon, I don't know. I feel like it could happen.
Yeah. It's not unheard of a coach winning a national championship or making it to the national championship game and then a few years later being gone. We look at Mark Helfrich up at Oregon, got him to the national championship. Of course, they got beat by multiple scores, but he got him to the national championship. A couple of years later, he was gone. You have to continue to build the program, which is why, I understand people are frustrated that this Clemson team just isn't looking up to the standard of what Clemson has looked like for the last, 5-6 years. But you have to understand that Clemson has built a consistent, self-sustaining program. It's one of those things where you can lose a game against Georgia, and you're still going to be a team that's quality. You're not going to just fall off the rails. Next year, we're not expecting Clemson to go 5-7. It's not the same kind of thing. And I think right now, LSU kind of got enamored with what they got for that 1 year. Remember, the year before that, Joe Burrow was maybe 50% passer. Some of the same guys that are on the program just didn't get it done. They didn't look anything like the 19 team, but they got it figured out. And now they have to figure it out again, or you're right, Orgeron's out of there. I want to talk a little bit about the top 25 while we're on it. So, obviously, there's some big moves. Oregon jumps 8 spots to go to number 4 after beating Ohio State in a rather dominant win. I know later in the game, Ohio State kind of getting their groove going, but you have to remember, Oregon was out with not only the best pass rusher in college football in Kayvon Thibodeau, but Justin Flo was out. They also had up to 5 starters defensively, or guys who have starter experience, out for this defense, and they still did what they did. So hats off to Oregon. Oklahoma blows Western Carolina out. I don't think anybody expected anything different, right? Now the love for Oklahoma's back. Everybody loves Spencer Rattler. He's the leader again. But Georgia and Alabama.
Can I make a
number one
comment
and
on
two.
Oregon? I'm going to go out on a platform right now, and I'm gonna sell as much Oregon stock as I can right now.
Oh, yeah?
I don't think they get higher than 4, number one. I think they're probably going to lose to UCLA. They may drop a game before that. And a lot of the reason is this offense is really one-dimensional to me. And when you're watching this game, obviously CJ Verdell, one of the best running backs in America, super underrated player. Kid's fantastic. I don't trust Anthony Brown at all.
Okay.
I know he played a decent game against Ohio State, but I think as they get into the heart of this Pac-12 schedule and they're having to go on the road, they're having to play late at night, I think there is going to be at least one game where they slip up.
Well, and conventional wisdom says that probably will happen. They are kind of the Clemson of the Pac-12. You're the team that's looked at to win it and really walk through it, and you'll lose to Arizona State late in the year. It's one of those things that's what they do. The only difference is, while I like UCLA, they do not have the defense that Oregon does. Not only do they not have the defense, but Oregon actually has a pretty good offense. I know you talked about the lack of diversity of their offense, but you got to understand, Ohio State ran cover 1 the entire game. They didn't even mix it up. They just did the same thing every time. Did you see them score 3 touchdowns on the exact same play to the exact same side of the field? They didn't have to do anything different. So I think Oregon, if they could get through that schedule, which right now seems favorable, if they can get out of Palo Alto, if they can get out of Los Angeles, they have a chance to really do it. I have no confidence in USC. Or Arizona State might have a shot. I think Oregon can do it.
Daniels is pretty dynamic, but
Yeah.
Oregon does have a pretty favorable schedule this year for their standards. But just when I look at them, I don't see playoffs. I don't see playoff quarterback Anthony Brown.
Hey, listen.
Something doesn't sit right with me about that.
Listen, to be fair, and I'm not ragging Georgia fans, did you really think that Jake Fromm was the most elite quarterback in the playoffs in 2017?
He wasn't, but Fromm was good enough to get him there. But are we
listen.
comparing this year's? I mean, I know Oregon's defense is good, but are we comparing this year's Oregon defense to one of the premier UGA defenses that carried them to the playoffs?
No, they're not that good, but they are much more physical, both on the offensive and defensive lines. We hadn't seen that in a while, and that's credit to Coach Cristobal. Coming up on the other side, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the top 25, and we will be getting into some NFL talk. Jameis Winston out there claiming that his trainer told him something and he had no idea what he's talking about. I love that kid, but hey, he's putting up points right now. Listen to 4th and 16 with Faxon Childress and Ellis Tolbert. We'll be back in just a second.
You're clear.
Did you see Jameis?
I saw like the clip of him like confused and stuttering. Like,
Yeah,
was he about to make up a lie or something?
He was.
And caught
So
himself?
what happened is the reporter asked him about the game. How did he feel about the game, and was he confident? And he says, yeah, we were just prepared. My trainer said, wait, what did my trainer said? he just said we need to be prepared. Like, Jameis. But he went out there, and I don't think anybody expected Jameis Winston to show up Aaron Rodgers at all, but they did. So again, Jameis Winston, the MVP of the NFL season is Jameis Winston's LASIK eye surgery. The guy can see football now. Hey, listen, in that Sean Payton offense, he might literally tear it up. But some other things that happened. We'll talk about Trevor. We have to talk about Trevor. Great start, some good and some bad. I did not expect him to win, so that wasn't even on my mind. But
Trevor, I don't know. Trevor looked a little rough, but I'm not going to read too much into it because
it's game 1.
It's game 1. Also, dude, Urban, they need to get him out of there, man. Like, I know it's.
So he's going to go to USC?
Hopefully.
I don't think Urban's the problem. I think the organization is the problem. I think if they can finally get somebody who is committed to actually building this program. Doug Marrone did not care.
They also have
about
the worst
Jacksonville
GM
Jaguars.
in the entire sport.
Shad Khan. But he's rich, so that's all that matters.
Khan is like the worst owner in sports. Balky, this is the former Niners GM. He's their GM now. Like,
I don't know Howie, man.
I hate listen, Balky's worse than Howie, and I'm the
Trent
number
Baalke's
one.
pretty bad.
I'm the number one Howie Roseman hater ever. Balky's worse than him.
Trent Baalke's bad.
And I just hate everything Jacksonville top to bottom. I know we're on a Clemson station. Like,
that has nothing to do with it, man.
I didn't like Travis Etienne being selected where he was, especially with James Robinson running for 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah.
You need O-linemen. Your O-line's terrible.
Yeah.
Invest in an offensive lineman. Why are you picking a running back in the first round?
I don't know. And I think I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to do the same thing that Cincinnati was doing with Jamar Chase. They wanted to get a reunion of two players that were dynamic in college. Literally, they did the same thing. When They should have gotten Penei Sewell.
Sewell looked really good against.
It would have been better for
that
them. But
Niners front.
The difference is that Jamar Chase actually showed out game 1. Travis Etienne is out for the entire season, which is not any fault of his own. But you got to think that fans in Duval County are pissed about that, because it's like, we didn't want him in the first place, because the whole deal was, even Urban Meyer said it, which is kind of weird, but that's Urban Meyer for you. He was like, oh, well, we wanted Kadarius Toney, but we couldn't get him, so we got Travis Etienne. What?
Kadarius Toney stinks for what
He
it's
is
worth.
well, and not only that, but he's dealing with injuries. He's dealing with being with Daniel Jones as the quarterback. There's not much going on with that, but we saw a lot of that was because Urban Meyer was using Travis Etienne as a receiver.
Dude, they didn't even run Robinson
They didn't
last
even
week.
run Robinson. He had a couple. I have him as my fantasy football running back.
He had 35% of the snap. Like, they're running the corpse of Carlos Hyde just because he went to Ohio State with
I
Urban
know.
Meyer. Like,
What?
get Urban
Okay, let me
Meyer
ask you a
out
question.
of there.
Let me ask you a question, because I know they have C.J. Beathard, but nobody believes in him. Do you think that he might try the Tebow thing with Cam Newton?
30.
At 30 seconds, coming back. Hey, you never know. He already tried the experiment once, and he's a coach who has nothing to lose right now.
I want Urban Meyer to scam the Jaguars franchise for millions and walk to USC and get Trevor an actual – hire Joe Brady.
Not ready for Joe Brady yet, man.
Go hire Joe Brady.
Not ready for him yet.
He's better than Urban Meyer.
He did make Sam Darnold look much better. He did. All right, we're coming up on time to go.
Are we going to do a lot of NFL?
Yeah.
And you got to be out at 59:45.
59:45. I'm on it. We'll do. We'll talk a little bit more top 25, and then we'll do NFL stuff. Keep the NFL a little bit light. If you want to go further after, we can. Welcome back, 4th and 16. Got a question for you out there listening. You can always tweet me in, Ellis Tolbert on Twitter. You can always call in. Phone lines are open, 864-654-7627. Does anybody have a problem with Clemson being number 6 in the top 25, being jumped by both Iowa and Oregon? Fax, you got any problems with that?
I don't have a problem with Clemson being jumped by Iowa and Oregon. I have an issue with Texas A&M being above Clemson because they stink.
Not anymore.
So there's 7?
Yeah.
Dude,
So they
they
got
should
dropped.
have lost that game to Colorado.
Yeah. Now,
100% should have lost that game to Colorado.
I'll give them a little bit of pass. Anytime you lose a starting quarterback, I don't care what team you're on, it's going to be an issue. Haynes King went out with a gruesome leg injury, gone for the year. Zach Calzada had the deer in the headlights thing. He was not ready for the game.
He made an insane throw to win them.
He did. And remember, he was supposed to be a Georgia guy. So it's interesting to see him go to Texas A&M. He was just not ready to be the guy. That's why I want Tyson Pumachan to be focused, ready to go in case anything happens, right? But I get it. It's one of those things where Texas A&M was looked at as a top 5 team, better than Clemson, and then they go out and lay a stinker against Colorado, albeit they did win the game, so can't do anything with that. Cincinnati got dropped to 8. You got Ohio State got dropped to 9. So they actually got punished a little bit more than Clemson did, losing to Georgia.
They lost to a team ranked 10 spots lower.
They did. But people really were believing in Oregon. This was the matchup, because remember last year everybody was excited about that. It was kind of interesting. So I don't know, man.
I'm really surprised Oregon won that game. Like, they looked like the convincingly better team too.
And we're talking about this too. We got a couple of ACC teams ranked right now. Okay, you got Virginia Tech at 15. Depends on how they do this weekend against West Virginia. It could be, and they could be ranked higher, which is good for Clemson. If they're playing North Carolina. It is West Virginia. See, I'm losing my mind here because I can't really figure out where the ACC is going to be at the end of the year. You got North Carolina's ranked 21. You got Miami, who almost got beat by App State and Chase Bryce crew. The most exciting thing about that game was the cat dangling. And that's it. That's all our shots. Again, NC State's out of running. Boston College was getting there, had an injury to Phil Dracovic. They're probably going to be out of there too.
Notre Dame almost lost to Toledo.
And we don't even play them, so we can't even use them for any kind of boost in our resume. So it's going to be interesting. Good call, another one. We got Cameron on the line. Cameron, what's going on, man?
Hello?
Hey, you there, Cameron?
Yeah. Sorry, was messing up. Hello, I just wanted to talk about, I know we were talking briefly NFL and college, and Baxton just mentioned, I wanted to ask two questions. Because last week I called about Notre Dame and said how disappointing they were, like, to me, and underwhelming. And then this week they really should have lost to Toledo. Like, if that – I mean, they got down there, they ended up winning, but I just don't – the team is very unimpressive this year to me. And then as for the NFL thing I was going to bring up, you talked about the Giants briefly. I think the Giants trading back and not taking Justin Fields and taking Kadarius Toney will be like a major, major mistake. Even if Fields doesn't like pan out perfectly, I'm pretty sure he'll be better than Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
So I just think that was a huge mistake by the front office. But that's just
without a doubt.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, we'll definitely answer that off the air. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
That's a very good point.
Listen.
Very good point.
That was an excellent point. But he was spot on both of them. Good call, Cameron. Look, Notre Dame definitely should have lost to Toledo. Jack Cohn, dislocated finger, came out and made a heroic throw. You should never be in a heroic throw situation if you're Notre Dame against Toledo. Okay? That's not like Clemson having close games or losing to Syracuse, which is it's egregious. It is. But Toledo is not even considered a Power 5 school. So it's one of those things where I think people gave Florida State too much credit against Notre Dame, and I think Notre Dame was not. They're being seen as what they actually are. And hey, Coach tried to tell you that this team was not good in the interview against Florida after Florida State game. He tried to say the old John McKay quote of this team should be execution. This team should be executed. He tried to make it fell flat, but he was trying to tell you this team is not good. College football this year is bonkers. There's a lot of crazy things happening, and I don't know how to explain it, but it is what it is. We're going to go talk about that New York Giants thing. Listen, if Justin Fields goes to the Giants, they instantly get a boost. You start seeing guys like Sterling Shepard be playing more confident. You see Saquon Barkley be even more of a threat because now you have two guys in the backfield that can run, that can be a danger out of the backfield. Now they have Daniel Jones, who can't make it further than 45 yards down the field without tripping on his own feet.
I thought that I said that I thought the Giants had the worst draft in the NFL post-draft, and so far
it's Gettleman. What do you expect?
Number one, apparently the Giants are enamored with Devontae Smith, and they let the Eagles trade up and snake them for Devontae Smith. I'm not super high on Devontae Smith, even as an Eagles fan. I wanted Justin Fields, but after this week one, got me reconsidering some things. But you're sitting there, and you have the chance to draft Justin Fields. Like, you can trade up to that number 11 spot. You can draft Justin Fields if you're the Giants. Daniel Jones let down a good team last year, and you trade back. You trade back and you draft a gadget player, in my opinion, in Kadarius Toney. I think that, I thought that the Giants actually were building up a pretty decent defensive core. They have some spots on offense. They brought in Kenny Galladay. I feel like they messed it all up this offseason. I really do feel like they dropped the ball big time, and they'll regret that for years to come.
And, yeah, they absolutely will, but it's a Gettleman-led organization. I don't have any confidence in them to get it together. Strange that this team has won a couple Super Bowls over the Patriots, and they're just, every year, just not good or just barely above average.
They have not had a winning record since 2017. There has been no point in any of the last 5 seasons where the New York Giants have had a winning record. That is an accurate stat, too.
It's just ridiculous, man. We got Gator Neal on the air. Gator Neal, what's up, man?
What's up, guys? 3 quick points. I heard you guys pumping up Georgia Tech earlier. Last time I checked, Georgia Tech lost to Northern Illinois. Second thing, Clemson doesn't deserve to go. If they go 11-1, they don't deserve to get to the playoffs because there's 40 other teams that could go 11-1 in that schedule. It's the same argument that you can make against Lincoln Riley. All I hear is how great his offense is. What about how bad his defense has been? I mean, the last 3 or 4 years has been historically terrible. And the last comment, I'll take it. The guy that just called in about Justin Fields and Daniel Jones, I completely disagree with all of you guys. If they go and get Justin Fields, they're still going to suck all out. They're still probably going to go 4-12. I'm not going to say whether or not I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback, but the team around him, the team around Daniel Jones sucks. Yeah, does Daniel Jones suck as well? Of course he does. He doesn't make them any better. The problem is they don't have any weapons on the outside. They've got Saquon Barkley, and everybody knows how to stop him. You just blow 7 or 8 guys in the box and then dare the guys to throw the ball. I don't see the Giants doing anything unless they got somebody like Tom Brady. Justin Fields is not Tom Brady, obviously, so I don't care who they would have went out and got. I just don't see the Giants being any good. And that division's actually up and coming, so it's going to be probably a long year for the Giants fans. Sorry for that guy, but appreciate you guys taking my call.
Hey, no worries, man. That was a good one. So I'm going to categorically disagree with you, but that's okay. We all have opinions, right? Clemson's going to get into that top 4 based off of previous acumen. They have shown that they get into the playoffs and they're competitive. They won 2 national championships. That's more than literally any other team outside of Alabama can say in this decade. Literally no other ones. The thing is, I tend to agree with you. I feel like Clemson doesn't necessarily have the resume as a Georgia or Alabama, but you talk about a bunch of other teams going 11-1. Well, tell me which one is going to go into playoffs and win it. I think right now we're looking at 1 and 2. And the rest is subjective. You could put Clemson in there. You could put Oklahoma in there. You could put Ohio State in there. You could put Cincinnati in there. But at this point, I don't know that – I think right now we're week 2. The same conversation about 11-1 Clemson every year. It does not matter. But I just don't – I don't see where you have to go – you have to put somebody in the top 4. So I'm interested in seeing the top 4.
To me, I hate the narrative that he brought up about – how there are 40 other teams that can play Clemson's schedule and get into the playoffs. All right, I get it. Clemson plays a weak schedule on a yearly basis. But if there's any team, and he did mention this, if there's any team that needs to be called out for lack of success on the big stage, it's Oklahoma. Oklahoma is 0-4 in the college football playoff. In the college football playoff era, they've gotten there 4 times. They've lost all 4 games. They've never made a national championship. You can say Clemson plays a weak schedule, and that's true. Most years, Clemson's schedule is pretty cake, and they cruise through it, and they get to the playoffs. But here's the thing. They've won 2 of those national titles. They've won 6 college football playoff games. They've been to 4 national title games in the college football playoff era. If you're looking for a team to hunt that also plays a pretty weak schedule yearly, if we're being real, the Big 12 isn't exactly strong any of these last couple years, then you need to be picking on Oklahoma, who is 0-4, and most of these games have just been blowouts. And they blew that massive lead against Georgia as well.
Yeah.
They have no excuse. Oklahoma needs to be put on this this narrative that Clemson is that, they can't compete against the big teams.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that as I'm hurt about Clemson fan. Yeah, we all know Clemson is going to win 99% of their games every single year. Is that a product of their conference? Absolutely. But that does not preclude them from what they've done in the playoffs thus far. Now, the last 2 years, a lot of people are looking at Clemson for the last 2 years and going, they're not any good anymore. It's over. I promise you that 90% of the Clemson program games that they've played over the years, you could put 40 other teams against Clemson, they would probably beat them. Going to the Giants thing, I agree with you. I actually agree with you on that one. I don't think that Justin Fields makes this team good now. But when you are recruiting, when you are building your organization, you want to start with a quarterback that no one thinks is a reach in the first place. Daniel Jones is absolutely considered a reach by pretty much everybody not in New York. Now, the only thing about that is, one, yes, Saquon Barkley is easy to be able to game plan against. You stack the box, blah, blah, blah. You wonder why that happens? It's because they literally don't have anybody else that can move outside of the pocket. You look at a Lamar Jackson, you wonder why Mark Ingram had a great year. You wonder why Tyson Williams, who is not even known, he was a 4th-string practice guy, and he had a great game last night because Lamar Jackson elevates them. Yeah, you could have a bad organization around you, but it's about building, and New York Giants do not want to build. That's just not something that they want to do, and it seems like it because they went out there and got categorically the worst quarterback out there, and then you got a player who's not really ready to be part of a playmaking aspect of that team.
And you would think that, bringing in Joe Judge, bringing in a new offensive coordinator, bringing in a new defensive coordinator 2 years back, that as a part of that, you're bringing in all these new personnel guys. You're bringing in Kenny Golladay. You're revamping the offensive line. You would think they would want a new quarterback drafted by the old era. Daniel Jones hasn't proven anything in this league. He's been a below average quarterback his entire career. If you bring in Justin Fields, number one, he's more reliable than Daniel Jones already, in my opinion. I think that if you put Justin Fields in there right now, he's better than Daniel Jones. He's more of a threat on the ground, so there are more packages you can go into, and I think he's more accurate, and I think he's a better leader. So if you would have drafted Justin Fields, would you have won 10 ball games this year? No. Would you have won 7 and had something to build on for the future and then had an entire offseason for Justin Fields to develop, for him to learn and get comfortable with these guys, to grow with them because it is a really young and a really exciting young team? I think yes. So I think that when you have Daniel Jones now, next year, either the Giants have to reach QB in a class that doesn't look as great or get a veteran, and that doesn't really fit the timeline.
Yeah, and again, it's about building your organization. It's not about are they going to be good in this year or the next year. Obviously, if we were talking about that, Travis Etienne was a reach for the Jags, not because he's a bad player. It's just because you didn't necessarily need a Travis Etienne. The only thing I will say is right now, Trevor Lawrence is in the same situation. You're being surrounded by not a whole lot of elite level of players, but they're building that. Now you have that piece. Daniel Jones wasn't it, but that's okay because at some point they'll realize that. And think about Josh Rosen and for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
He was not that guy.
So they drafted a new quarterback. And it wasn't even 2 years.
It wasn't even 2 years.
They went back the following year, and they're like, we don't need this. Get him out of here for a second, and we're bringing in Kyler. And look what they've done since. They've won 8 games, and they look really promising for the future.
Yeah. And so, like I said, while you brought up a lot of good points, I just think that there are some things that you have to consider, especially when you're looking at the playoffs. If there were 40 teams that can go 11-1 and get in the playoffs, there would have been more than Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Georgia and Oregon get into the playoffs. Florida State. There would have been more. There would have been 40 other teams doing it, but they didn't. So it just kind of is what it is. We're coming into the end of the show. We got Urban Meyer's show coming up, ironically, after this, the coaching show for Urban Meyer. So that's going to be interesting. As for Ellis Tolbert and Faxon Childress, this has been 4th and 16. We'll be back here next Tuesday, same time, 7 p.m., ready to answer your questions and get ready for hopefully another Clemson win. We'll see what Georgia has. We'll see what Oregon has. They're not really playing anyone this week, so it doesn't really matter. But I guess people have said the same about Clemson. But it is what it is. I think Georgia Tech's going to have an interesting game against Clemson for the first quarter. After that, I think I tend to agree with them. It's going to be pretty bad. It's going to be a bloodbath. But I'm lost at words at that. We'll see you next week. Hopefully you guys are having a great night tonight. Take care, and I'll see you next week.
Broadcasting live from the Priority One Security Studio.
Bye, guys.
Bye. See you. Hey, if you guys are watching over on Facebook or YouTube, stick with us. We're going to have a little bit more conversation for a little bit longer. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth. If you're in the comments over at YouTube, we're going to be checking those now, getting you guys, answering some of those questions with you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's a Tuesday, so.
We had someone say, you guys don't check the chat. We are checking the chat on YouTube, but we have callers in on the radio.
Yeah, I actually have, so folks who are listening, again, I don't know if you guys know this has changed a little bit from what we did last season, but we're actually now going live on radio here. If you guys are not from the South Carolina area, we are actually on live radio, so it's kind of shortened it, but we're going to keep going live afterwards. But we're going to start doing that. That's why we want to make sure we get to your comments now, so appreciate you guys. I'm just catching up with some of this now. Let's see. Hope to see the pass. Clemson Carson said, hope to see the pass be the priority against Tech. While I do agree with that, the only reason why I want to see more runs, because I want to see Clemson do it. Because I don't want us to have a 496-yard passing game from DJ and everybody's happy again, but we run the ball 10 times and then we get into the playoffs and forget about the run because we're playing a tough defensive line. Something about that just irks me so bad, and we've done that in the last few playoffs, just completely forgot how to run the ball. In 2018, I know you guys remember this, Wake Forest. Everybody called Clemson a finesse team. They can't run the ball. They're finesse. Granted, it's Wake Forest. But they went out, rolled up 400-plus yards rushing, and showed everybody, hey, we can run the ball. And for the rest of the year, they did that. 2019, something changed. I don't know what it was. You still had Travis Etienne. And it's not like in 2018, people didn't see people, stacking the box against Clemson. It's not like people in 2017 didn't stack the box against Clemson. We just stopped doing it. I don't know why, but it's frustrating. And I want to see them run the ball. Maybe not 40 times, But if I'm so frustrated right now. If Clemson gets back to tempo, which is something that I think benefits this team, they've gone to variable tempo, and I understand why you do it. A lot of it's down and distance, where you are in the field, game football situation. But Clemson used to just run tempo. And I'm not saying just 3 and out yourself in 30 seconds, because some teams do that. But when you're doing that, that helps establish a rhythm. You call a run play on first down, you get 5 yards, get right back up there. That defense is like, oh, God, turn around. They're doing what Clemson does, reading their little cards. They're looking, trying to get it from the sideline. Keep running. That's going to get you into a rhythm. But if Clemson gets back to tempo and they're running upwards of 90 plays a game, is it too much to ask that if you're going to run 90 plays, you at least run the ball 40 times? It doesn't seem like that's outrageous. That gives you 50 passes. So
these are conversation topics for Mr. Elliott.
Yes. Well, I know he's not listening to us, but I don't know. Dabo said on his presser that he's taking names of everybody that's doubting DJ.
I'm taking names too. DJ's gonna prove everyone wrong.
Here's what I don't like about DJ. About people talking about DJ. It has absolutely nothing to do with DJ's if you're criticizing his game, oh, he didn't step up in the pocket. Okay, when they ran this, he only had one read and didn't even run. He just threw it out of bounds, or he just threw it in a double cut. Those things are obvious. Those are football things that you can criticize. It's not that. It's people literally talking about him and his family as people, saying that he needs to go back to California.
It is weird behavior.
What? Because he had a bad game? So it's the polar opposite of we were all like, this is the best quarterback ever, when he had 900 yards last season in 2 games. But he has one bad game against Georgia, who is number 2 in the country, who probably has the 1 or 2 best defense in the country, honestly speaking. People are now saying that DJ is this terrible quarterback and he needs to go back to California and we don't need him. The problem that I see with this is not DJ. DJ will be fine. But back in the day, you could say things about players on chat boards and they don't care. They don't see it. They're going to school, they're doing a thing. Now, everybody on Twitter is tagging DJ and saying these things about him that's easily searchable and tagging his dad.
And it creates more pressure. Like you can't even grasp how much pressure is on him.
Look beyond that. If you are a top flight quarterback coming into Clemson, and you know that one day you're going to have a bad game.
It looks bad.
It looks bad. If you're Cade Klubnik, who I'm super stoked on this kid. He is going to
kid, right?
Yeah, he is going to be nasty. If you're looking at him and people saying these things about him, and it's not even about football. A lot of it's just ad hominem stuff, just talking about him personally. Would you want to still go there, especially with the transfer portal being the way it is now? And if you transfer, people are going to talk crap about you then. So, in some ways, yes, these kids need to grow a thicker skin or stop getting on the internet. But in some ways, if you're not criticizing the game, which he already knows, because guess what? He watches film, right? You don't think these coaches...
You don't think Dabo and Tony are telling him? He gets it.
He gets it. He knows that.
You tagging a college kid who's my age on Twitter isn't accomplishing anything for anyone.
Right. Like, 42-year-olds telling this kid, you suck, you need to go back to California. You're trash. We don't need you. And yes, I've seen it. Ridiculous. Why they sit home eating their chicken wings, just talking crap about a kid who's just trying to make his footing here. Now, listen, I understand disappointment. We all wanted to beat Georgia because that is the most insufferable fan base next to, well, for you, it'd be Texas A&M. If I got any Texas A&M people in here, that's going to be fun. But I don't know, man. I just feel like the more you do that stuff, the more it affects people who are considering sending their kids to come play for Dabo. And like I said, you don't think he knows about this. They have the intel. They have the Windows Surface pads on the sidelines. He's calling up to Tony Elliott to talk about what he did wrong. And when they get on the bus, They have the tablets reviewing the plays. This happens. They know about that. Then they got to go to Saturday, then they got to go Sunday, and then Monday they got to hear about it. They know about it. So just, I don't know, I would lay off on that. We got Cameron Cox. He says, what are your thoughts on my Seahawks performance this week? Also, do you think Indiana can pull it off against Cincy? I'm going to start with Indiana and Cincy. What I saw out of Indiana week 1, no. Not against the Cincinnati team. I don't think I don't know what happened to Indiana.
They looked really good last year in a lot of, especially
they did. They beat Penn State.
Penix Jr. looked very good, and this year, week 1, I really don't know. I think Cincy wins that game. I think it'll be closer than people think, but I think Cincy wins that game.
Well, he looks apprehensive. You know, he had the torn ACL, and he was out, and he looked apprehensive this year. He just doesn't look like the same player, and that's bad because he is the guy. Freifogel doesn't look like the same receiver as last year, literally beating top-flight cornerbacks who are taken in the draft this year. They just don't look the same. And right now, Cincinnati has continuously built that momentum, especially now that they have gotten accepted into the Big 12. They're really trying to prove it, right? I don't know that Indiana can beat it. Is that in Indy, or is that in Indiana?
Indiana in Bloomsburg, I'm pretty sure.
That might help.
I'm going to say 31-24 Cincy.
I'm going to still say Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati, without a doubt, is a team that is. Do I think they're top 4? No. Do I think they're top 10? Yep. Luke Fickell has done some crazy good stuff with that program.
Yeah.
You know, his name is actually on the list for USC. So
maybe look out for him at LSU too.
I mean, over at LSU. I mean, that's
him and Lane Kiffin. One of them. If Orgeron gets.
I don't think Lane Kiffin. He's already been there. He was. Do you know what happened to him at USC? They left him on the tarmac after a game because he lost. They fired him, and he didn't even get on the plane. He's not going back. I don't know why people don't remember that.
No, I meant at LSU.
Oh yeah. Well, I think I'd stay at Ole Miss. That sounds weird.
Dude, no. You wouldn't stay at Ole Miss over LSU. You know how much money LSU can throw at you?
Okay, but it's not always about money.
Lane Kiffin, you ride the Matt Corral train until he's gone, and if that LSU job is there, you pounce.
Look, man, if we're talking about the SEC West anyway, does it really matter? You can go coach at LSU all you want to. Year in and year out, you're not going to consistently beat Alabama. Does not matter. So I don't know that it's more than a lateral move outside of making more money, which if he does well at Ole Miss, he could ask for more money. Hugh Freeze had a nice contract there until he decided to be a weirdo, and now he got fired. So, well, he resigned, but.
And then he said something about the Seahawks Colts this weekend.
Yeah, Seahawks Colts.
Did you catch that one?
Yeah, they beat Indy with Carson Wentz.
Indy's a good team.
I'm selling them.
You can't be in a position to sell right now. After what happened to your boys.
No. But okay, so we'll talk about that too because I think the Cardinals are better than we think they are. And look about their defense, dude. They have Isaiah Simmons in their front seven as a linebacker. They have Chandler Jones. They have J.J. Watt. They have one of the better defenses in the league. And then Kyler Murray is a video game. He's the only other player outside of Lamar Jackson because I still think Lamar Jackson, bar none, is the best dual threat and is shaping up to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. That team is nasty. Think about their offense, too. A.J. Green, Hopkins. They are nasty. So
I think they're okay. I think that Kyler's a little overrated, personally.
Did you see the game that he had?
Did you see last season where he collapsed on the stretch?
Did you see the Ravens collapse?
People were giving Kyler MVP hype through like week 9.
No,
last year.
I think that's a little too much.
And I was like, just wait on it. And as the season went on, and the Cardinals started to play better teams, Kyler Murray's production slowly went.
Yeah,
And he went crashing and burning into the ground. What comes to mind specifically is that game against Seattle with a chance for possibly with the division on the line on Monday Night Football, and he absolutely stunk it up.
Well, you have to
Seattle's defense isn't even good.
Yeah, but it's Seattle. They're like Clemson. They can lose a game, but they're still consistent enough that you can bet on them to win it more often than not. And okay, let me get this out of the way first. One, Titans defense has been awful for the last 3 years.
They got some stuff to address.
So that's a problem. And two, people have figured out the whole Derrick Henry thing. It's hard to stop him when you're just going up against him in the open field. But if you're selling out because you're not throwing the I'm sorry, obviously I'm on a rant here because my team, but you throw the ball 3 times to Julio Jones, okay? A.J. Brown's not even in the game. The leading receiver in the game was Cameron Batson, not even A.J. Brown or Julio Jones. Ferkser barely got in the game as a tight end, got any action. Taylor Lewan is not focused. Yes, I'm frustrated, and yes, I think that we were a little bit overrated game 1, but I think that Arizona's also going to be better. As far as the Seahawks, again, I usually don't bet against the Seahawks regular season.
They looked very good.
They're one of those regular season teams that, again, it's hard to beat them. I don't bet against them.
Russell Wilson starts the year on an absolute warpath every year.
He is unstoppable.
For like the first 10 to 12 weeks, Russell Wilson has a case as the best quarterback in the league. People start to figure him out a little bit as the season goes along, and then he gets all this MVP hype, and he kind of hits on a decline. But with that being said, his elite play wins them. They're going to win 10-plus games yearly, especially with this extra game. They're going to make the playoffs every year.
Well, that's also
because he's a floor raiser.
You're right, and that was the whole idea with a guy like Russell Wilson. That's why they were like, let Russell cook, because those first few games they let Russell cook. This is why he was so frustrated, because he didn't have any input as to what's going on after that. Tyler Lockett,
fantastic football player.
Every single year I will pick him in fantasy football because he is going to give you points.
He had an insane, over-the-head catch.
Insane.
Also, I like the Colts. I think they're going to win the
I
division.
don't, man. I like the Colts.
They're my pick to win the division. Is that defense might be a little overrated. I've got some questions about the secondary. Tyler Lockett was standing wide open behind the entire secondary twice.
I know.
And I'm like, can we get Carson Wentz in a position to succeed for once?
Okay. I like the Colts. I don't like them because they're in my division. I also want to beat them every single year. We have to beat them to remain relevant. They are one of the tougher teams. We always split with them. We never beat them twice. We can never beat this team twice. All right? The only thing I will say is that who do you think won the lottery? Okay, I'm going to be honest with me now, because I know how you felt about Jalen Hurts first. And if Jalen Hurts keeps up what he did against Atlanta, do you think that Carson Wentz won the lottery or Jalen Hurts won the lottery?
You're putting me on the spot.
I am. Because, look, if you're the Indianapolis Colts and you're already reeling because you got rid of Jacoby Brissett because you didn't believe in him.
I believe in Jacoby Brissett.
I believe in Jacoby. But then you failed to keep Andrew Luck healthy enough to actually let him be there long enough to win a Super Bowl for you.
They went from Luck to Brissett, back to Luck, back to Brissett, to Rivers, and now they got
Wentz. Rivers and now Wentz. But Jalen Hurts now, people are like, what? That's weird. It was weird watching Jalen Hurts look like a better quarterback than Matt Ryan. Okay? So, again, Colts, did you win the lottery or did you lose it?
I'm going to... Okay, well, number one, you have to point out the Eagles are still paying some of Carson Wentz's salary.
So maybe he won it.
And they're eating that dead cap. Carson Wentz's check is clearing regardless, so he won it.
He has to stay healthy.
He does. Okay, so that's what another part of this is. I cannot declare the Eagles even close to winners of this trade until I see the season unfold because, number one, we got 16 games of football left.
Right, and Atlanta's not good.
Number two, if he doesn't play 75% of snaps, that pick does not translate into a first-round pick, and that pick's going to end up in, the 50s. And
right.
What are you going to do with the pick in the 50s?
Right.
You can get a decent player, but if that pick ends up a first-round pick, I would unless Wentz, barring Wentz has an elite season again, I think I would be ready to declare the Eagles winner of this trade. I'm not fully bought in on Jalen Hurts. I know he had a great game against Atlanta. I know he looked decent in a couple games last year. Still have questions about him as a passer of the football. But what I will say is the leadership and intangibles he brings to the locker room, the environment. Last year with the Eagles, for those of you who don't know, I'm a massive Eagles fan. It was toxic last year with Wentz and Doug, and obviously the time had come to move on. The team was bad because everyone on the field was crippled outside of Carson. The media had completely turned against both Doug and Wentz, And it was time for a change. And bringing in this new era of Sirianni, you got Gannon as the defensive coordinator. Now the defense looked great. And you got Jalen Hurts, obviously, as quarterback one. I feel like his personality and his leadership traits fit the city of Philadelphia better than Carson Wentz did. I feel like Wentz was boring to an extent, and I love Carson Wentz, but he never really gave those vibes of a natural-born leader. Even people in the locker room said, we might prefer Foles as a leader. We think he brings the team together more. So while Carson Wentz was a great player for the Eagles, I think Jalen Hurts is a better fit personality-wise. He's on a cheaper contract. He's younger. You took him in the second round, so you might as well play him.
And you also won a Super Bowl without him on the field. So,
as much as that pains me to admit, and I think Carson played a big part in that,
yeah,
Nick Foles was the one who won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But, all right, so let's go back again. I do believe that Jalen Hurts is a great leader because obviously that's what he was looked at Alabama. That's the reason why he has so much respect at Alabama, even when he transferred, because he has that leadership. He has just something about Jalen Hurts that
he's a lot of other quarterbacks.
Yes. Again, I tend to agree with you. You played Atlanta. They have a porous defense. But if he does it consistently, you got to start buying stock in Jalen Hurts. I want to answer a couple questions for Deontay Brownlee because he actually had a couple of them in the chat over on YouTube that we didn't get to, but it's really good. He asked, "What do you think about the Chiefs? Who's your Super Bowl picks?" If not for a meltdown, Browns win that game. I think people are starting to figure out the Mahomes magic. Yeah, defenses are starting to latch on to what he's doing. You got to think that pass to Tyreek Hill.
Mahomes is nuts.
He is, but hear me out here. You got to think that pass to Tyreek Hill, that long pass.
It was a little lucky.
It was because there was no safety help, and if any corner, I don't care what cornerback you put on the field, if he's trying to cover Tyreek Hill for more than 3 seconds, bad luck. It's going to be bad, right? So I think people are, at some point, they're going to figure out that Andy Reid offense with him.
I'll go out on a limb and say, Deontay's asking for Super Bowl picks. Yeah. I think we just saw the AFC Championship game.
I think so, too.
I really do. I think it's going to be Browns. Yeah. I think it's going to be the Chiefs. When you look at the Browns and their roster makeup, really good up front on both sides. PFF #1 O-line last year brought back everyone. Wills went down with an injury, but Teller came in and played very well. They've got, what's his face as well, Decker. So
their defense is not.
Their defense is pretty good. I have concerns about the linebackers is the only play, but their secondary I feel like is pretty solid. Myles Garrett is ridiculous.
He has always been ridiculous.
Their defensive line, they picked up Malik Jackson and Malik McDowell now at defensive tackle. They rotate in and out. These guys, they were putting pressure on Mahomes, but obviously Mahomes just went God mode. Like he's scrambling out of the pocket. It's impossible to sack.
Let me ask you this question: who do you see coming out of the NFC? Because that one's interesting. Because we're talking Seahawks here.
The NFC's wide open in my opinion. But if I had to be put on the spot, and I know it's going to be boring, I would pick Tampa Bay again. I feel like they're the best team, and it's just it's one of those things where I like the Rams. I don't believe in Matthew Stafford. I don't think that he's the piece that pushes.
They look pretty good with them.
They did look good, but
they look really good.
It's the Bears, so grain of salt. I don't see it's difficult because the Packers. I feel like I'm completely out on now.
Yeah,
I don't feel like the Packers.
I'm actually buying Saints.
You're buying the Saints?
I'm buying Saints with Jameis. Now, I don't know about Super Bowl, but I think they're going to make a long push because you got to trust Sean Payton.
Sean Payton's a really good coach.
He's a really good coach. He's been screwed for the last few years when it comes to playoffs. Calls here, plays there, blah, blah, blah. But with Jameis, he gives them a different level of explosiveness that Drew Brees, ironically, didn't give them. And Drew Brees is going to leave as one of the top 2 passers in NFL history. He gives him another level of that. Remember, he was a 5,000-yard passer. Now, he had 30 interceptions, too. But I think now that he's under Peyton, he's got that LASIK eye surgery, which people make fun of all the time. I think he's legit.
You can see the crab legs better now.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, Deontay Brownlee, yeah, figuring them out. Did you not see the Bucs do it? Their defense was not good last year until the playoffs.
Listen, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. I want to go out there and say,
Lord.
Mahomes is okay. I have hated on Patrick Mahomes in the past. He's stunk in both Super Bowls he's played, to be fair to him. But up until that point in the playoffs and both playoff runs, he's been stellar. He is the best September quarterback of all time, and it's not even close. He's been an elite regular season quarterback. He he leads the league in pretty much every passing stat and metric since he became a starter. There's no way that you can sit here and say that Mahomes isn't the best quarterback in the league. I don't even think there's someone that's close. I think he's in a stratosphere.
All I'm saying is that if you're looking at a guy like Patrick Mahomes, at some point the Andy Reid offense is going to be figured out. The reason why they're so successful is because they have a running back who can moonlight as a receiver as well. They have a tight end who can moonlight as a receiver as well, and they have a receiving core with one of the top 3 receivers in the country. I mean, in the league with Tyreek Hill.
Can we talk about how Travis Kelce is literally just a big wide receiver and
he
doesn't even line up to block anymore.
You know who he is? He's a less physical Darren Waller. They're the same dude, except Darren Waller he can block. Travis Kelce doesn't care about blocking. He's just going to go catch a pass. And he's good at it. He's unstoppable.
I think it's also fair, while we're on the topic of tight ends, it's Kittle, Kelce, and Waller in their own category, and then
everybody else. Everybody else. Yeah,
those
without a
3
doubt.
are above everyone.
Well, I will say Tanyan is getting up there. Yeah, Tanyan's legit. He led the league last year.
Tanyan's value also has value because him and guys like Tanyan and Goddard are both those guys that can catch and block.
Yeah.
So those guys are always going to have.
They're a little bit different. So if you're a Clemson fan,
I
was going to say, if you're a Clemson fan, it's like the difference between Davis Allen and Braden Galloway. Yeah. Let's see another one. This is a really good one. I want to talk about this before we definitely go out. He said, we talk about DJ looking shaky. Ohio State fans should be equally concerned. Actually, yeah. The only thing is, the only difference is that even with the shaky performances out of C.J. Stroud, he still had 400 yards in literally both games, and he had 4 touchdowns in both games. DJ has barely really made it happen, but it's not his fault. It's not all his fault. Whereas I think the difference between DJ is that he has issues with not only his offensive line, but trying to figure out who that running back number 1 is and trying to get those receivers outside of Justin Ross and then getting Justin Ross back in the swing of things. But then if you look at C.J. Stroud, he has a really decent offensive line. He has Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, really good guys. They have Trayvon Williams, and they also have Mayan Williams too, who are 2 good running backs. He has a really explosive offensive line, but it starts with that offensive line. I think CJ's problems is more of he is just, I don't know. He goes rogue, but then he turns it on and will throw a nice pass to Chris Olave, and it's good. We haven't seen that out of DJ, but it's not all DJ's fault. I think that's the only difference. But I do think that they have an issue. It's bad that he kind of got outplayed by Anthony Brown, which is...
Dude, if Anthony Brown is a college football
He's not bad. See, okay.
If Anthony Brown is a college football playoff quarterback, my mind is going to explode.
See, here's the thing, and this is why I try to defend Anthony Brown a little bit when people go after him. One, he played under Steve Adazio at Boston College, quite possibly one of the worst coaches ever, all right, they tried to throw the ball with him, but what ended up happening is got his ACL torn twice. He was like, you know what, I'm done with this. I have an opportunity to go somewhere else, win the job, and play big-time football. That would be like, what I think Anthony Brown is like as a talented, because I saw his talent. Remember, it was 7-7 in Death Valley at one point in the fourth quarter. We won the game 35-7 somehow, but it was 7-7. But I say Anthony Brown is equal to or less than, on a bigger stage, Chase Bryce going from Duke to App State. Because at App State, Chase Bryce is killing it. He looks good. Duke had nobody around him. It was bad.
Duke's a disaster.
They're awful. They beat North Carolina A&T, and I was like, I honestly, before that game, I was like, North Carolina A&T might beat them.
And they lost to Charlotte the week before.
Yeah.
North Carolina A&T also had the lead in that game. I think they were up 10-0.
Yeah, but it's Duke. So that's what I think Anthony Brown was like. I think he's a better quarterback than Boston College made him out to be. Anyway, we're going to get out of here. What'd you say? Don't agree with the Chiefs' take for the most of the league. I think you need a good pass rush, elite O-line to be able to beat control of the game and the clock. The Browns have that. Most teams don't.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I don't disagree with that.
The Chiefs' offense is so explosive to where if you can't control the clock, you're going to lose.
All right, Deontay says he has a lot of overthrows, which they should be 500-yard games. I mean, yeah. I mean, both quarterbacks do. I think it's mental for those. I think Bryce Young at Alabama went into a different situation. Their offensive coordinator is Bill O'Brien, which is strange to think that he actually has this offense humming. But I think there's less pressure at that position for him to go there and be, he followed a good quarterback. Sure, Mac Jones, right? Great quarterback. But he didn't follow Trevor Lawrence. I think there is a massive difference in that. Although Mac Jones might be onto something. You called that.
I did.
We still need time to see it, but
hey, Mac looked good last week.
He did. But the overthrows, that's just a mechanics thing, and that's mental. Those guys know how to do it. They've been playing football long enough. It's on their quarterback coaches to get it right. But if they do it, he says, Super Bowl champs, Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. I think the
what? You going Chiefs again?
I think the Chiefs. It's the safe pick, number one, and Mahomes is.
So you're saying they're the new Patriots?
Number one, the
Eagles, Andy Reid.
The Eagles should have never fired Andy Reid. While we're at it,
okay.
Andy Reid went to 5 NFC Championship games with the Eagles in the span of 7 years. If Donovan McNabb wasn't a loser, then maybe they are the next.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Donovan McNabb is one of those guys that is not easy to like.
Choke artist.
He is not easy to like. As a person, I've heard awful stories about. I've heard Clemson. Yeah, for sure. I've heard Clemson fans talk about stories about him because remember they played them in the game. They got blown out.
Yeah.
But apparently he was the biggest jerk ever. And then you hear stories about him at Philly and then in Washington it was even worse.
He ran T.O. out of town after playing on a broken leg.
Oh, how do you run T.O. out? He's the biggest mouthpiece of every team. You were more of a jerk than T.O.?
T.O. literally played on a broken leg in the Super Bowl for him, and he responded by saying he didn't want him. It's just unbelievable. But Chiefs over Bucks, I know it's boring, but
so you're saying Bucks going back too?
Chiefs revenge over Bucks. I wouldn't be surprised to see a team like the Browns maybe get the Chiefs, but out of the NFC, I think it's just a crapshoot. So I'm gonna pick safe and go with Tom.
Well, as long as you didn't say it's something weird like Cowboys, and I'm all right with that. Deontay says, "Why don't you guys stay a while?" Well, my main man Faxon here is a Clemson student. He's got to get home. He's got to go back to Clemson. He's got a life going on. I got some things too. I got to get up early in the morning. But we're going to start doing this. We try to stay a little bit longer because again, we used to do this about this long anyway.
Yeah, this was last year. Was strictly it was Facebook and YouTube.
But the radio won't give us any more. Hey, if y'all are out there, reach out to them. WCCPFM.com. Tell them, hey, Ellis and Faxon needs more time, and we will definitely be here longer. But appreciate you guys sticking with us. It's been fun. So y'all have a good night. Again, we'll be here again next Tuesday. So we'll let you know. We'll schedule it beforehand too, and we'll try to do better about reading the comments on it. It's just hard for us to do because I got the Comrex thing. It's hard to match up, but I'll make sure to get you guys in there. And always, also, if you're watching, feel free to call in. I'm gonna say this real quick. The number is 864-654-7627. Come in and call and let us know what you think. Say these things. It's fine. We'll get you in and out. But I appreciate you guys sticking with us, and we'll see you next week.